Today on the podcast, we're talking about what might be the most crucial thing when it comes to scaling your Shopify store, your brand. What is it? Ad creative. Specifically, the type of creative that is working across most of our accounts at our agency and for our own brand need, and that's UGC, user-generated content. Not the professional stuff. Don't spend 20 grand for a video, but how to get real people talking about real products in an authentic way. So to lead that conversation, we're bringing on William Gasner, the CMO and co-founder of Stack Influence. This is a UGC platform that helps connect you with creators to make good content. And he's going to help walk through, if you're just getting started with making really good content, the mistakes not to make, what to do, how to find the right creator, when you should dial in having a script, what should be on that script, when other times you just let the creator go. Also, he's going to talk about product seeding and how to really mobilize a group of creators and influencers to not just make content for your brand, but how to distribute it. If you're at all looking to grow online with paid ads, I would definitely listen to this episode because he's going to give you the playbook on how to make that creative that's great for Instagram ads, for TikTok ads. And one little secret, this content is also amazing on your website to help lift your conversion rate. So I hope you enjoy this episode with William. We'll dive right into it. All right, William, I have a very big question. What is this thing called like UGC influencer content? And if I own a brand, why should I care about it? Why should I be thinking of putting this into my marketing budget? Like I'm coming off with the first question off the top rope, so I'll give you the hard one.
Sounds like a plan. And fantastic question, Jim. So UGC, probably if you're in the e-commerce space, you hear it all the time. What the acronym means is user-generated content. Basically, it's real customer image, video, or testimonial is kind of the definition, right? So, and the essence of it is authenticity. Um, and I know that kind of can be a vague terminology, but basically, when I think of UGC, right, it's almost the opposite of a professionally done video shoot or photography session. So think your customers taking a truly real, authentic video or image about your product, how to use it, and posting that online or giving you as a brand rights to reutilize that on online ads or marketing material. Why it works really well, and we can dive deeper into this a bit later in this podcast, is that it's more trustworthy at the end of the day, right? As consumers, we're now bombarded by so much content. It's only getting worse with AI generated content. And basically, we now know very well as a consumer online or scrolling on your social feed, what's an ad or what is kind of trying to just artificially grab your attention, you could say. And at the end of the day, people want things that they truly trust. They don't want something that someone paid millions of dollars or thousands of dollars to actually generate, to kind of manipulate you in some capacity. They want content that they can actually relate to. And that's another really big aspect to UGC. It's more relatable than sometimes professionally done content or what they call celebrity influencer done stuff, right? Professionally videoed or taken with amazing cameras. So it isn't always totally polished, but it's trustworthy, it's authentic, and it performs better on online ads and marketing material these days. I can dive deeper into any of those kind of
Yeah.
subtopics, but that's the high level overview.
But wait, what about Dollar Shave Club? Shouldn't I just make a really funny viral video and do that? Isn't it that easy?
Not always the easiest, right? Like that's purely a lot of that is pure chance. And not to say that professional content does not work, right? Like I think that's a necessity for shaping a brand incrementally as you grow. But the bottom line is, and this is what I always recommend e-commerce brands or really any brand, is have a mixture of both, right? Like you obviously want really good content showcasing your product and your brand, right? Like to make a professional kind of presentation about who you are. but simultaneously you also want something to show that you're authentic, that customers actually really love your content. And now you go to websites, you see, I mean, UGC is a customer testimonial video, right? Like real people talking about the experience with whether you're selling a service or a product. And then on social content, right? You want to create this image for customers to aspire to, and that can be a mixture of professional content, but you also want things that truly relate to your audience in this really truly authentic way. And it's just going to make your brand more accessible. And you see now like these massive companies that never, like, were always super polished, it was only models in their content, right?
Mhm.
Really investing in this UGC, in this influencer world, because it works, right? Otherwise they wouldn't be doing it.
Exactly. Yeah, and it's so funny. I don't know how many years ago, but I feel like it's like, oh, you guys spend 10 grand, 20 grand to make that 60-second funny viral video, and I was working at startups that would raise money, and they would just tank, and it's like we just burned that money. But as I've been fortunate to know well and work with Stack Influence and be a customer of Stack Influence and with our clients, it's just amazing to see when user generated content is done well, man, it hits. So let's kind of start from the basics. I'm like, all right, I'm sold. Let's do UGC. I'm going to invest in influencers. Let's say I sell sweatproof t-shirts. What help hold my hand on how to do this the right way? Because I'm sure there's lots of ways this can go wrong. How should I approach doing this for the first time?
Great question. So first things first, you want to when you start a brand, you should understand who your ideal customer is, or who's a good representation for your product, right? That's kind of the first thing to really nail down, because you want someone who is actually representing your product or your brand in a proper way. Now, some people take that too far, and they think that I know exactly how my brand like should be spoken about. Here's all the X points. That is also somewhat important to convey, but give your whoever you are hiring, that influencer, that customer, to create that UGC, a decent amount of creative freedom, and you'd be dramatically surprised at what people can come up with. And then also kind of let the marketing or the advertising platforms determine what is the best.
Mm-hmm.
And the platforms now out there are fantastic at that, right? The social platforms reward content that actually is engaging, and that's what's actually going to go viral. The ad platforms now will only show content that actually is turning into impressions, into clicks, into conversions, and you can optimize for that. And you need kind of a wide breadth of content to do that. So now going back to, once you've established who your kind of ideal person is, and let's give some example. Like, let's say you are selling protein powder, right?
Mm-hmm.
You probably want people who are interested in health and wellness, right? And that can range across a wide variety of different kind of interests or passions. Maybe you reach out to some people who are yoga teachers. Maybe you reach out to some people who are runners. Maybe you reach out to
Mm-hmm.
some people who are kind of just bodybuilder gym rats, you could say. And so find your niche, but then test reaching out to a lot of kind of people
Mm-hmm.
around who could be a good fit for you. And when I say reaching out, you can do a lot of this manually, right off the bat, right? Like, start searching, going back to the yoga teachers, start searching on Instagram or TikTok for hashtags or people who have tagged in their captions yoga or yoga practice, etc., or yogi, right? Meditation. Um, and you're going to come across profiles of people who are really, really passionate about these things. I like to change the terminology of also even influencer to passion promoter, because at the end of the
Mm-hmm.
day, that's the biggest influence, is people who are passionate about something. Once you identify these people, come up with an enticing way to get them to collaborate with you and create this content, right? And there's numerous forms of that. Some people are willing to do things, if you find the alignment totally perfectly, do things just for a free product, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
and the industry calls that product seeding. So, hey, I'll give you a free product in exchange for creating some content and maybe posting that content on social media.
Mm-hmm.
Second way is giving them simple monetary fees, right? Usually, if you're targeting people on a social platform, usually the going rate is about $10 for every 1,000 followers they have.
Mm,
Um, the third way is giving them some sort of rewards, and you can combine all three of these, but giving some rewards for the content they produce and the sales they convert. So
mhm.
um, industry calls that affiliate marketing, right? Hey, for every sale you bring me, I'm going to give you 20% of the proceeds.
Is
And
20% a standard number, or it probably varies based on the product margin and the influencer, right?
it absolutely does. I would say the most standard is 10%, but I'm seeing
Okay.
more and more often, just to kind of stay competitive. It's kind of like a bidding system.
Mm,
20%, again, depending on if you have the margins for that. Seeing more brands offer that between 10 to
mm,
20, right?
yeah.
Usually you don't have to go totally over that. And then the kind of last way in the realm of affiliate side is some people will simply reward content creators for generating certain metrics, like, hey, if you
Mm,
break 10,000 views, right, I'm going to give you a cash bonus. And it's not just about sales. So once you establish that and you entice someone to kind of collaborate with you to create this content for you, also make sure that you have them sign something which is also giving you the rights to reutilize that.
yeah.
That's a very important thing. Don't wait to the end of your collaboration, because sometimes people will not give you those rights. Some people will go as far as to actually give you monetary. Like, if you can't convince someone and they're an amazing content creator, sometimes you want to give them cash bonuses or payments to utilize your content incrementally. Some people literally will give some creators certain percentage of ad revenue when they're using it as an ad or as a
Yeah.
whitelisting ad, which we can also dive into. Um, but basically, get all those things standardized, and then give them some sort of guidelines of what you kind of know what works, what doesn't. Maybe your objective is to generate any sort of content. Maybe it's to generate only video content, right? And you need video content to be running a TikTok ad, and you need it in a specific format. You don't want the video horizontally filmed. You want it
Mhm,
vertically filmed, right? So those things are obviously important, but going back to what I said earlier, give them a decent amount of creative freedom, right? Because you'd
mm,
be really surprised what works, what doesn't, and then kind of put that content out there and allow either the social platforms, the ad platforms to designate what works and what doesn't. I've been so surprised in the past that like some content I personally didn't think was the best ended up becoming one of our best performing ad copy,
mhm.
or ad pieces of UGC. Um, so that's kind of my fundamental ways to generate it. And then the last thing I'll say is, um, as every single product can be different of the content that's produced. Some products work really well, kind of unboxing videos. Your boxes are
Mhm,
really great. Some don't work. Unboxing videos don't work at all, right? You need the product in use to
mhm,
really demonstrate its value. Others can just show the product visibly and it can convert really well, right?
mhm.
So get your feet wet is my best advice, and test what works and what doesn't, because it's not always the same across the board for every single brand, every single product.
Yeah, I love that advice. And once you know your persona, then be open to testing different people, different personas, sub personas within that could work. Like for example, we have the Sweatproof shirt brand. We sell a lot of extra larges, or like extra large influencer. We tested like a young guy, an older guy, and I'm so dumb, but it took us this long. It's like, what if we did really pretty girls? And so it's like there's a thought, and so we're going down that path. But I loved your point too on let them have some creative freedom, because I like sometimes we might be too tight on the scripts. And
Yeah.
then like any examples of like, we're trying to get creative, like, oh, is it unboxing, is it in use, any like fun examples of people doing creative things with a product where like, wow, I didn't think of that, or that's interesting or novel. Because as people go through their feed, it's like, how can you just get their attention, right? And so I don't know if you're seeing anything fun there.
I could not agree more. And that is so, like, take it with a grain of salt when I say give a lot of creative freedom. It's like give creative freedom to figure out what works, right? And then as you get learning, start to hone that. Give creators also ideas of, like, you made a really good point of especially on the social side of things, like, and even ads, like people's attention span these days is very short. You need to hook people very quickly, right? So
Mhm.
giving them example hooks, giving them example content that's worked
Mm.
in the past, showing them kind of how the product, like what your best performing pieces of content do, give them those examples, right? And then kind of, you don't have to tell them, hey, do exactly this unless that's totally your objective. Um, but like giving that kind of overall guide will really enable that content for them to get their juices flowing, you could say. And yeah, we've seen some people, like, again, we've had an insane amount of content creators produce viral posts. It's an amazing world to be a content creator now and to produce a huge, another aspect of UGC, by the way, is that social platforms and ad platforms need a lot of content and they
Mm.
reward quality content. Like, you could have 100 followers on social media and get a post that gets millions of views if the content is engaging enough.
That's
Um,
amazing.
so it's a crazy wild west now, and a new kind of era where, like, you can, if you really invest in a huge amount of content generation, um, you can quickly get the word out about your product and your brand. But yeah, once we've established for our clients like what works, what doesn't, then we always have some sort of UGC or influencer guideline, or um, we call it
Mhm.
influencer brief, right? And we'll
Yeah.
consistently follow that as we get more content back, as we see what posts actually are doing. We're giving these influencers more direction to um, what works, what doesn't, right? Still, again, want them to be creative, but we also want them to do things that we know and have already established, like perform well for our brands.
Yeah. And it's also nice to learn from other influencers like, oh, wow, that opening frame or that hook really worked. Let me tell the other like new ones we have, hey, just so you know, here's something to test or to have. So it starts to really
Exactly.
compound. The thing I've been really blown away with UGC, obviously it's fantastic for running Instagram ads, TikTok ads, but even using UGC on your website on product pages just to like reinforce social proof, it really has a lot of legs when you can do it the right way. And so for us, it's like, how do we build that content machine, right? Because
Absolutely.
also we might be leaving money on the table in the sense that we're usually just getting the content and blasting it. We're not going after people with big followings and trying to push that. But one common thing that I see with a lot of Shopify and direct to consumer brands is it is hard to build this content machine, right? You got to feed the beast. What
Yes.
advice would you give? How you build the content machine, and having UGC be a big engine in that machine?
Absolutely. So you totally nailed it. Is that when most people think of UGC, they just think, hey, I'm the only purpose for this is to run ads, right? And don't have a massive ad budget. Why do I even need this content off the bat? And the real reality is now it dramatically helps website conversions and even online marketplace conversions like Amazon, Walmart, etc. Like, Amazon launched a system called Amazon Posts, which is kind of that social proof feed at the bottom of
Mhm.
an Amazon listing. Um, Whole bunch of tools for e-commerce websites to now integrate content, and they go
Mm.
as far as allowing you to like tag products in it, like make them interactive, right?
Mhm.
Look like kind of a cool social feed. There's some I've seen that actually look like an Instagram story feed where you can kind of click on and a pop-up comes up and you can watch videos and almost
Mhm.
interact with the website similar to a social platform. But all of those things have now been proven to increase your conversion. So it's like, don't just think of UGC as, hey, it's going to help with my ad rates. It's going to decrease
Mhm.
my expenses, increase my conversions. But like when someone comes to your website, which is where they're going to shop, it also helps there. People want to see rel- relatable content to them and authentic and trustworthy things that show that, like, this is not just a perfectly curated, I'm not just being sold by this kind of manipulative professional photography and good copy. Like,
Yeah.
here's
Yeah.
real people using the product. If the product was not a very good product or quality, like, I'd see that in the content and that gives me trust. Now, going back to your question of how to generate this and kind of feed the beast or feed the machine, the best strategy that I recommend brands do to start out, and what my company Stack Influence specialize in is product seeding, is shipping out free
Mm,
products, right? Is like, and then giving extra bonuses for content performed, or giving them rewards if that content actually does well, or if they give you rights to use it on ads, etc. Affiliate, you name it. But the product seeding is, in my opinion, the best strategy at first to really feed the machine, because it gets quite pricey very rapidly if you're paying people huge amounts, hundreds or thousands of dollars to produce content, right? And
yeah.
you'd be surprised, people with smaller follower bases can be insanely creative and produce an amazing amount of content. Not every single piece of content you get might not be perfect, right? We usually say it's like an 80-20 principle. 20% might honestly be not very quality, but you're saving a huge amount of money by not having to pay people every single time, like hundreds or
Mm,
thousands of dollars. The second aspect why I think product seeding, and what I've seen actually, doing thousands or producing thousands of pieces of content, is better, is that when you're paying someone money, right? They might not even care about your product. Like,
mhm.
they care about the money, right?
Yeah.
And that's their only major incentive. Now, if you find someone who is willing to put in a decent amount of effort to produce a piece of content for you, for just your product, they obviously care about your whatever your product is, right? It doesn't
Mhm,
guarantee that they're going to love it off the bat, but at least they have a high interest in it. So it adds to that true authenticity. Like, it's like a customer, your ideal customer producing content is kind of, in my opinion, the best type of content and the true essence of UGC. Now, people
mhm.
pay for UGC, but depending on how you go about that, it can become incrementally more inauthentic. And so, sticking in that product seeding realm, one, you can scale it out. You're just sending free products, especially when you're first starting out as a brand. Maybe you don't even have that much money for an ad budget, but you better have product if you're just starting out, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
So you can get a lot of content very fast. And even when you're a scaling brand, you have millions of dollars in sales, product seeding is still a fantastic strategy, just because you can scale it out, and the content that's produced is just, it's realer, right? It's like
Yeah.
getting that real authentic customer
Mhm.
content.
And for brands that are like six figures, approaching seven figures, like I want to do product seeding. Tell me, like, what's the minimum amount of people I should do to do product seeding well? Is it 20 creators, 100 creators? And what should my expectations be? Should I try and get people that have a little bit of a following? And like, what's the minimum? Just to give people advice on this idea of product seeding, because I totally agree with what you're saying.
Absolutely. So my advice there is at least 100, which sounds like a
100,
lot to some
nice.
people. Yeah. But once you're actually trying to scale, like, the average amount of seeding collaborations that people do on our platform is 300.
Nice.
We actually have a minimum of 100, because we know that that's kind of what it takes to really figure out what's working, what's not, and to really get that content machine flowing. And there's brands that do thousands per month with our system now.
Hmm.
So you can really scale that out. Um, but you want to get enough content to really be able to test. And again, not everything's going to be perfect. So you want to play into that world of, like, even out of 100, if 80-20 kind of aren't that great, 80 of them are quality, but then another, let's say 20 of them are like fantastic. And that's kind of, if you get 20 pieces of content that you can feed into an ad machine, or on your social side of things, or on your website as social proof, you're really getting those engines started.
Yeah.
So that's basically my advice for that. And then to get that content, sometimes people are like, that's crazy. How am I going to get that? Honestly, I recommend utilizing some sort of platform. Stack Influence, we help brands automate this. We can go deeper into that. But there's a lot of other platforms out there that'll give you a database of influencers, create a system, maybe hire a VA to kind of like create that process of outreach, negotiation, tracking systems, etc. And then the last thing to note is so follower base. There is a aspect to follower base that correlates with quality, right? The more
Hmm.
followers you
Yeah.
have, kind of the more you could say you care about quality. um, but honestly, the average follower base that we recommend is about 5,000. Like, and some people think that's actually pretty low. You're gonna,
Hmm.
for product seeding, most
No, I
people,
think that's great. Yeah.
um, But the bottom line is like follower base has almost become a weird vanity metric because now on TikTok, on Instagram Reels, like unless your followers are super engaged, like you could have 100,000 followers, you might get 1,000 likes on a post. You could have 5,000 followers and also get 1,000 likes on a post, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
that's just from your normal follower base. Then if you're producing good content, those posts can go viral. Like you can get millions of views,
Mm.
and it's because the social platforms now only care about quality
Good
content.
content. Wow, that's
Yeah, they want people's feeds filled with things that
yeah.
are actually engaging. So 5,000 is the range that, and by the way, like once you start getting over 20,000 about, you're gonna have to start paying people. Most people aren't willing to really do free
Yeah.
products, outliers. If you have a nice enough product and the alignment's right, like there's people on the platform that we work with that do free product stuff for 200 with 200,000 followers, but like um, most have 20,000. Get in. We sometimes will collaborate with brands that are influencers that have like 1,000 or even 500 followers, and it's like if they're quality enough and they're producing good content,
Yeah.
like it works out fantastic. So
Dude,
that's
that's
how we see it.
awesome. I feel like I have a lot of clients that'd be interested in the seeding program. What even need actually our brand. What's like the ballpark range? And by the way, for people listening, what he's talking about seeding, it is a project management nightmare. It is so hard to manage yourself in addition to the bazillion other things that you're doing. So the fact that there's people and services that will help you and you can afford it, leverage it. But like, wait, what's the ballpark range if people are like, all right, I want to give Stack Influence a go to do this seeding program? What does it take to get started?
Absolutely. So for Stack Influence, very simple. You set your goals. So how many products do you want to seed in a certain time frame, whether it's 2 months or 12 months, and you have monthly
Mm,
goals, right? Um, what products do you want to promote? So you can promote your entire catalog. You can promote one product, right? Like what type of content are you trying to generate? And then give us, if you've done this in the past, or even if you haven't, we're going to create this influencer kind of guideline brief, right? Again, going
mhm.
back to our previous conversation, we want to push them in the right direction at least while still giving them creative freedom to at least do stuff that we know works. If someone's never done this before, we have a team to actually help them kind of create
Mhm.
that fundamental guideline. And even if you know things, like we've done hundreds of thousands of collaborations, so we know what works, what doesn't. So we're going to also push you in the right direction. Once that's established, brands sit back and relax and just monitor campaigns. The platform handles
Mhm.
the rest, literally getting people to get their product, making sure they post on time, analyzing results, tracking the entire funnel of the influencers. And then and they also all the legal logistics to get you rights to the content, and then have a very easy dashboard to
That's
download
awesome.
content and analyze results. So try to make it as seamless as possible without adding any extra bandwidth to brands, at least with the
Yeah.
Stack Influence platform. It's not
Yeah.
always the case with other platforms you may use.
That's cool. And what like ballpark range to pay for that? Is that
Oh,
like
yes.
low? Yeah. What's the range so people know when
Yes.
to reach out?
Sorry. Forgot to answer that question. So how we charge is there's no monthly fees to our system. We're a guaranteed pay as you go system. So we simply charge a flat fee per successful post. That fee
Mhm.
ranges from $20 to $40.
Okay.
So
That's great.
um, pretty simple, and the price gets cheaper the more you scale. So if you want 1,000 people and we in a certain time frame, we get you 950 in that time frame, you only pay for 950, and you don't have to pay us all up front. It's like a pay as you go weekly billing system. This
That's
week
awesome.
5 people posted, right? Like you pay for 5. So it's pretty simple.
Mhm. Okay, very cool. So if people want to learn more about Stack Influence or just want to follow you to stay up to date on how to maximize UGC, where should they go?
Absolutely. Um, First off, go to stackinfluence.com. Brand sign up. We have a whole bunch of information on the website, but we also prefer and love getting on calls with clients just to understand where they're at in their e-commerce journey, what they're trying to do, where they're trying to scale, how they're trying to invest in product seeding. All of our account executives are like consultants, so we're going to help you along the way and figure out what platform you should be focusing on, etc. You can really easily book a call with our team, top right of our website. Feel free to personally email myself if you have any questions. My email is william@stackinfluence.com. follow me on X or on LinkedIn. Trying to get more into the educational content game. So posting tips and tricks as we go. But yeah, if you reach out to me or just go to our website, we'll love to chat with you.
Cool. Well, William, this was awesome, man. I do a lot of this stuff myself, and I learned a good amount today. So I appreciate it, man, and look forward to following along.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on, Joe.
Thank you for listening to the Shopify Growth Show. If you found this helpful, be sure to subscribe and leave a review. It helps other Shopify founders like you find the show. Want more Shopify advice? Sign up to the Shopify Growth Insider newsletter by GrowthHit, where we break down the top 5 growth tactics every week. Remember, you're not in this alone. Building a Shopify brand is a grind, but you got this. Keep testing, keep scaling, and don't run out of larges on Black Friday like I did. Have a good one.